meeting to order, and welcome everybody. Number 3, Technology Department updates.
Now this meeting has been kind of brought together at my request. We've got a lot going on in the world of technology, and so I'm going to let Mrs. Bennett just share with us a variety of things. I might chime in on a couple of them.
Yeah, awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for kind of changing things up and doing it on a Monday and coming to meet and allow me to share a little bit about what's going on with our department. I'm very excited. So I've got several things that I wanted to share with you all tonight. I wanted to share with you a little bit about our technology team and how we do things here in Scott County. I wanted to share some celebrations. I wanted to give you guys a little bit of an idea of what all we do as a technology team. And some of the numbers that have to do with that. We're going to talk a little bit about Online Learning Academy, and really excited to talk to you guys about one-to-one program and being able to go one-to-one in Scott County next year. So I'm very excited about that. And then the technology plan, which I know he shared with you guys ahead of time. And not that that's what you all were reading over your spring break, but I am going to kind of go over that as well with you all, so that because there are a lot of big changes on the horizon, and so I want to make sure that I'm communicating that with you all and keeping you all in the loop, and certainly highlighting some of the awesome things that are going on within Scott County. So I know several of you all, and have worked with you in the past, but also you may not be familiar with me as well. So I'm Maria Bennett. I am the CIO for Scott County, and some people, what is a CIO? Chief Information Officer, but that's kind of the title that's given for Director of Technology within Kentucky. So I have more of a I have a teaching background. So I taught here in Scott County. This is my 15th year in Scott County. I taught for 5 years. I was an assistant principal, or a dean when they were called deans, for 2 years, and then most recently I was the principal at Stamping Ground Elementary for the last 7 years. So I'm very excited. This is a little bit of a different role. In the past, our CIO, we had more of a technical background, and we have she did a lot of fabulous things as far as technology and infrastructure here within Scott County. And so I hopefully bring a curriculum and instructional lens as well to our department. So I'm, again, really excited to show you all the things we've been doing, and then all the things and places we want to go as well. So they absolutely hate that I do this, but I'm showing you what our team looks like, because I think it's important that you all know the faces that go with the names. So it's myself, Mike Rogers, Matt Reed, and T.C. Clarkston, and then I have Candy Duncan as well, and she is my admin assistant 1 hour a day. So I have her 5 hours a week, and so she helps out with a lot of board meetings and things like that, and helps with some of our assets. So it's myself and 3 full-time engineers, and then Candy as well. And they, again, they're going to kill me for posting their picture up, but I do think it's really important, because technology is fabulous in that when it's working, you should not know all of our faces, but when it's not working well, or when something goes wrong, I mean, that's when everybody knows who the technology team is. But there's so much that goes on here within our district, and one-to-one or not, technology touches everything we do nowadays. I mean, especially in the last couple years. And so that was one of the really exciting things, is that got to take this role, watching as we went through the pandemic, and seeing how much technology our teachers had to learn on the fly as we went through that pandemic and kind of made our way through it. I was just so excited, because I've said I want to be able to equip our students and our staff. I want to be able to engage them, and I want us to be able to enhance our learning. I think we came so far on the fly in the last 2 years, and it would just be such a disservice to our students if we weren't able to keep that momentum going with our team. So there are also several people that kind of fall under this technology team, but these are the ones who report to me. But there are 15 STCs, and so we have a STC, or School Technology Coordinator, in each of our buildings. We share one though for Phoenix, Horizon, and ECS, and then Matt is our STC for preschool, and that's just because there's not a whole lot of technology within our preschool program. They're limited on how much they can even have in a day go on in their classrooms. So we have our STCs, and I meet with them on a monthly basis. We also have something new this year in digital learning coaches. And I'll talk a little bit about that within our celebrations, but that is a new role that has been started here within Scott County. And those are teachers, full-time teachers, who receive a stipend to receive some training as far as ed tech goes, and push that out within the buildings. And then in addition, the library media specialists also fall kind of under my guidance. Again, all the STCs, the digital learning coaches, and library media specialists all report to their building administrators, but these are the people that we're able to kind of funnel some of the things that are going on within our district. So just wanted to highlight that. So I just wanted to share kind of some by the numbers and what a massive amount of technology we have going on within our district and the infrastructure. So we have, you can see the numbers there. We have our network switches. We have 1,250 telephones that we are utilizing, 1,200 security cameras, and those are running over 11 different servers. We have, you can see the 8 different virtual servers. We have right now just under 9,000 student devices and 1,800 staff devices as well. With this most recent tech replacement, in last year's tech replacement, we had 700 Chromebooks that we purchased, 135 desktops, and 84 laptops, so that's kind of been on a regular basis. The last few years, you guys have allocated funds to be able to help make sure that our tech replacement is replaced every 5 years, so that gives a little bit of an idea of what some of those numbers were last year. And then we have 1,140 wireless access points across our buildings, and these were some of the really awesome, crazy numbers to see, is that on a daily basis, on average, we have about 8,000 wireless clients at any given time, about 14,000 devices connected. That's the devices that we provide, but it's also people's cell phones that are connecting onto our network as well. And then about 135,000 emails are processed on a daily basis here within Scott County. And then these are actual numbers from a week's worth. I mean, in 7 days, 25 million sites visited, 1.1 million sites blocked in a week's time, 650,000 searches, 55,000 videos going on in a week's time. We're regularly creating student accounts, so that is a daily checking to see every new student that's come into the district and making sure that they're synced. There's a lot of things that kind of seem like it's magic behind the scenes, but there's somebody pushing those buttons and doing those things, and that's our team of 4. So they're working extremely hard, and we're onboarding new hires and resignations, so that's kind of just in this year. And every single time we're taking on a new staff member, we're creating Infinite Campus accounts and emails, and I feel like we've created some really good systems, but there's just the amount of numbers that the amount of traffic on a daily basis is pretty alarming, and things that I didn't even know until coming into this role. So I think it's just really important to see how much technology is across our district. These are some of our different programs that we use here in Scott County as well. And I'll talk a little bit about some of the software and how it's chosen, and plans to continue to make sure that we're providing the best software for our students at any given time. But we have several different programs. You guys, I'm sure, are familiar with several of those as well. And then we're regularly monitoring that as well and checking our activity. You can see how many times in 1 month Google was searched or was visited 721,000 something times in the last month, and then we check our activity as well in Clever. So we have 2 programs that really allow us to see the security portion of things with the GoGuardian and making sure that our students are accessing the appropriate sites, and then we also use that ed tech analysis as well to make sure that our students that we're getting the best use out of our programs that we have here in Scott County. And then just a few more numbers. So these are help desk tickets. We have a help desk system that Matt Reed created in FileMaker. And that's just to show you how many tickets are put in a yearly basis. Those last two were over the pandemic, in 1920 and 2021. So you can see we're already about hit that already in going into April. So I have no doubt that we will. That number will continue to climb and probably be even larger for this year. And that just gives you an idea, too, of what kinds of tickets we have. You can see how many computer tablet repairs tickets are put in. So this year alone, we've had over 2,000. And that is, we have one computer engineer, that's Matt Reed, and he is the one that's currently doing those repairs. Now, I will say, our STCs do a lot of these repairs at the school level, but these are the numbers that are coming up to the district level to be completed. So these are ones that are coming up to the team of myself, Matt, Mike, and TC. So you can see we are, Matt was even able to show me, we're able to salvage a lot of those parts. We're able to he's been able to get 300 salvaged parts, but 123 screens and 79 keyboards. It's remarkable how much he's making repairs. I think this morning he's like, I've got 118. So that's how many he's got on a regular basis. So he's working extremely hard to make sure that we're getting computers back in kids' hands as quickly as possible. So, and I should say that's not just student devices, but staff devices as well. So I wanted to kind of show you some graphs that kind of show our progress over time as well. This one looks a little interesting, almost looks like a negative effect with the staff members. But I will kind of show that over the last 12 years, we've really increased how much we're getting kids in our students' hands. And I remember when I first started teaching in Scott County, I had a couple different devices in my classroom as well, and we're kind of trying to get a little bit more standardized across schools, but that includes our bus drivers. There's not necessarily a need for every single bus driver or custodian to have an individual device, but as we've increased in staff, we've tried to make sure that all of our staff have what they need, but we're really trying to push those computers and devices into our students' hands as much as possible. So you can see we were at 66% and now at 83%. So at one point we were 4.2, like we had one device for every 4 1/4 students. And this graph on the left shows that we're pretty close to 1-to-1. But however, I will say that includes things like computer labs at this point as well. So we're counting specific devices and comparing that to students. And so that is not necessarily that every kid has a computer. We know that not every kid has 1-to-1 at this point. So that number can be a little bit misleading. But that's to show we do have quite a few devices within our district, but we know that we're not at 1-to-1. And you can see the graph on the right shows how we have gone from more traditional devices, like those desktops and computer labs, and how we've really moved to more mobile devices and those next gen, or Chromebooks and things like that. So you can see how that has definitely taken off in the last few years once Chromebooks hit the market. And I will say, at any point, please ask questions. This is not a Maria Bennett show. I want you guys to ask questions if you have questions throughout. So I should have said that from the beginning.
You're sharing a lot of information. It's very interesting.
Okay.
But I do have one question.
Yeah.
If you will go back to
absolutely.
the last screen. If I remember during COVID, and I guess this wasn't exactly the one, but we do have a number of systems that we do have that I know that we shared out when we could.
Absolutely.
During that time, but from what I understand, a lot of those will be, what is the term we use?
End of life.
Yeah, they're going out of life
Yes,
pretty soon,
absolutely.
right?
Yes. So we have. That was one of the challenges when I stepped into this role this year. We had 4,667 devices that were hitting end of life at the end of this year.
This year.
Yes. So what that means is you can still use computers that are hit end of life, but they no longer get updates. So where that really impacts us is if we have students that are testing, which is third through the end of.
Yeah.
I mean, they need those updates, and they would not be getting those updates anymore. So while it's a good computer, it can still be used. It does not allow us to do what we need to do. So stepping into that, we had almost 9,000 devices, and almost half of them were gonna hit end of life at the end of this year. So that was a little bit of a, okay, we gotta figure out how to make sure that we are able to do business as usual, because that's about half of our fleet that would be going out the door. So, or that would not be useful for testing, and we know that that is a huge part. As a state, we're moving to online testing. I mean, that's, our testing will be online. ACT, we're doing some paper this year, but next year it will be all online. So we recognize that we have to have those updated computers. And in the following 2 years, we were gonna have like another 1,400 that were gonna hit end of life. So that was a challenge, which I'm happy to say we have a solution for. So I'll get to that in just a little bit, but that number would have definitely, that ratio would have increased significantly with our devices that were just going to hit end of life this year. So yeah, I'm glad you brought that up.
It's a big impact for us as we're moving forward with this
Absolutely.
program, so I just wanted to kind of point that out, because I knew that was something that really stood out as we were talking.
Yes.
I always have like this cartoon picture in my head when we were just trying to get computers out
Yes.
the door to give them to children.
Yes. Some were
You know.
passing out desktops if they had to. I mean,
Yes.
we were just trying to make sure that kids had what they
Right.
needed to be able to learn. Yeah.
Right, right, and
Absolutely.
now here we are, so.
Yes. Exactly. So this is to show how our devices have adjusted over the last 12 years as well. So in 2009, we had 1,600 devices, student devices, and obviously as Chromebooks have hit the market and have just made it much more accessible for us to be able to put those in students' hands, we have, like we said, almost 9,000 student devices at this point. I highlight this next portion because this is to showcase what our staffing has looked like over those same 12 years as well. So we have obviously increased our student devices significantly, and our staffing has stayed the same. And that's to really highlight what a fantastic job our technology team is in doing and making sure that they're taking on a tremendous workload on a regular basis, and their number one priority is to make sure that students and staff have exactly what they need to be able to provide a quality education for our students. And but it is challenging. I mean, you saw those numbers. We're talking almost 2,300 repairs and one person doing those. So in my technology plan, I've got some ideas for how we can hopefully utilize some of our students in helping with some of that as well going forward. But I do want to highlight that has not increased quite the same as our devices. And in fact, this is to kind of show in comparison in Scott County to the state of Kentucky. So in Scott County, we have one full-time staff member, one technician for every almost 3,600 devices. And on average in the state of Kentucky, on average in the state of Kentucky, there's one staff member for about every 1,700. So we're working at about half the capacity of most of the others as far as staff personnel. And again, that just goes to highlight what a tremendous job our team's doing. I'm super proud of them. I don't want to take the credit because they've been in this role for the last 12 years, and they have just done a fantastic job. So, and that is the team that I'm working with, and then obviously we have some tremendous STCs as well who've been helping make sure that they can take care of any of the tech replacement or break and fix things in the building level as well. So they only send up things that they don't know how to do. And a lot of our STCs will ask, show me how to do this. I'd like to do this. I don't want to have to send it to you. I'd like to fix it myself. And so we have a tremendous group of people here in Scott County staff-wise, but I did want to highlight that. I do want to celebrate some really awesome things that have happened this year because it's been really neat. We've been, at the beginning of the year, we did a digital readiness report that we sent out, and that's the report that we sent out asking, do you have internet at your home? Do you have a device at your house? Are you able to run YouTube videos over the internet that you do have in your house? I feel like we got a much better cleaned up report on that this year because I feel like parents were able to go, yeah, I have internet, but that's on my phone. That's on a hotspot that I have. And that does not, they've seen over the last couple of years when they reported that they may have had internet in the past that, yeah, we have internet, but it was not sufficient for 3 kids to be able to do online learning at home. So I felt like we got a much more cleaned up report on that this year. And we are still about 11% of our students, families reporting that they do not have internet, quality internet at home. So that was helpful data for us to be able to apply for some things that we were able to. So we also replaced some servers this year. This next one's a really exciting thing to feature. So at the beginning of this year, there was the emergency connectivity funds, and you may or may not have heard of this ECF, but there was funds that were provided, or an application that was put out for schools and libraries to apply for money to provide more devices in order to support remote learning. And they wrote it in a way that allowed us to think about students and staff who might not be able to participate in remote learning if we had to be virtual again. So we were able to apply for several different things, and really this was the first time it was out there, so it was really unclear on if this would completely fall on deaf ears or what. You know, sometimes we can apply for grants or other funding and we don't hear back. So at the beginning of this year, we applied for devices for those, thinking about those 4,000 that were going to be hitting end of life at the end of the year, and also thinking about what we needed to be able to address that one-to-one. So that's kind of how we came up with that number. We originally had we kind of applied for around 7,000. We also applied for the hotspots, and that's how we used the digital readiness report to generate those numbers. And then we applied for 5 wireless bus routers. In talking with Josh True, our director of technology, I was able to ask him, you know, we saw some of those wireless hotspots didn't necessarily work for places out in Stamping Ground where I live. There are portions that even if we provide a hotspot, it's not going to provide service for those families. So one of the things we talked about was, I asked him how many of our buses are traveling 45 minutes or longer and going out to some of our more rural spots within the county. And so that's how we kind of came up with the number 5. So I had applied for us to have routers to outfit 5 of our buses that travel 45 minutes or longer, so students could have Wi-Fi to and from school. So even if they didn't have Wi-Fi at their house, even with our hotspots, they would have access to and from school on a regular basis. So just kind of put it out there, and we received funding for all of it. So that's been really exciting, and I'll show you a picture here in a little bit. We received 43 pallets worth of Chromebooks the other day, and or just a few weeks ago, and so I am really excited to share that we will be able to go one-to-one in Scott County. So very exciting. We were also able to do a new dark fiber bid. We had a contract, and you guys approved that earlier in this year, in December, that we had a 20-plus year contract set up with Spectrum, and we were able to renew a new contract for 8.5 years, and we've been working on that since August as well. We cleaned up some of our dispatch addresses. We found that when we were calling 911, it was sending it back. It was sending out weird addresses and all basically routing them to Great Crossing because it goes over our PRI line, so we were able to clean up those. We've been able to clean up 900-ish Infinite Campus staff entries and make sure that those numbers matched our MUNIS numbers as well, so making sure that our systems are matched up. Created an Office of Student Learning Google site this year, which has been really neat for posting curriculum.
And that's been one that I think from principals, I mean, as we're going through site visits, that I'm hearing consistently is, hey, that was a home run.
Yeah. So we created just kind of a one-stop shop for our teachers, or for all of our staff to be able to access. We replaced our access points, so all of our wireless access points within the district are 3 years or younger. We were able to do a technology surplus this year and get rid of technology devices that were outdated. We were able to do some cleanup with our tech replacement. So like I said, you guys have been helping fund making sure that our technology replacement for staff is updated every 5 years. We were able to kind of clean it up and make sure that we're really, when we're replacing technology, we're making sure that they're getting in the hands of all of our instructional staff. We had some, various things, like as a principal at Stamping Ground, I might have bought 50 Chromebooks. Well, then that was automatically falling into the tech replacement, and where I, as a principal, would expect that I should have a way to fund those devices. So we were able to do a little cleanup, but I think we're still able to make sure everybody has what they need, but kind of standardize it a little bit. We've had different devices in different schools, and we want to try to get that as cleaned up as possible, because it is hard to repair at a help desk when you have 20 different types of devices that are floating out there. I was able to get funding for digital learning coaches. Like I talked about earlier, we have teachers that we're able to provide a stipend for. We had about $23,000 that were sitting at the state level that we just hadn't claimed. So we were able to get that, and that's allowed us to do a monthly meeting, and that's going to allow us to make sure that they have some devices as well. They're going to be helping me out with several things, and that's a big component that we haven't had, but that's our way to make sure that the initiatives that we're doing are getting pushed out to each of our schools. We have monthly STC meetings. We've been able to make those about half of that time together operational, and half of that time talking about ed tech and keeping everybody in the loop on all things ed tech related. We just recently got back from our KISTI conference, which is by far one of the best conferences that I've ever attended. I think it's a fabulous conference, and it is intended for teachers and STCs and digital learning coaches, and we've had some of our STCs go several years, but I hope to build that in the years to come, and hopefully get some of our teachers to be able to participate in some of that as well. E-rate funding, I did not know anything about E-rate funding before I started in this role, but as a district, we receive E-rate funding for basically, it's funding that we are provided based on our free and reduced numbers. And so we are currently at the maximum that we can receive. So we receive 80% back on our switches, our licenses, our internet, and we have, that goes within a 5-year time frame. We get a certain amount of money that we basically are able to be reimbursed, or we are able to apply for, and we get 80% of our utilities covered with that. And that requires us on a yearly basis applying for that E-rate funding. So every single year, it requires us saying, these are, and it is not it's a lengthy process, but it is here is what fiber internet we're using, here are the licenses that we're purchasing, and you have to, I mean, it's on a national, it's federal dollars that we're able to receive, but we only pay 20% of what we would normally have to pay for internet or APs if we don't apply for those on a yearly basis. So
will that continue? That doesn't have to do with stimulus packages, does it?
it does not. It has been in place.
Gina might be able to tell them for years. Years.
I mean,
Okay,
it's one of those things that they say, listen, you need to have a backup plan if this is not available to you. But it has been in place for years and years. And so there's not necessarily any reason to think that they wouldn't continue it. But it is also, it's always good to have in the back of our head that we have to keep the internet on. I mean, it's a utility. We have to make sure that the internet's going, and it's important that we're filing for that E-rate every single year as well. So, and then we have STLP. Our students are going to be at state next week. Next week's the 20th, right? we have STLP that is going to be competing at state. We have several robotics teams that are going to be competing at the world level in Texas in the month of May, which is really exciting. We have lots of PD offerings that are being offered this summer that are around ed tech. One of the things that we heard quite a bit from teachers is, we really feel like we need some ed tech training and professional development opportunities. So this year I'm excited to say we're going to be able to offer 14 offerings this summer. So that's pretty neat, and that's a lot of our teachers that are providing that. And then we are going to be updating the Scott County Schools website. The company was bought out, so we're going to have to get a new website. So I'm working with Renee on that. And then the creation of a Scott County Online Learning Academy, which we're going to talk about a little bit as well. So,
Was that because the company was bought out, was that why the charge was there? And
to make a new website. That was the main reason, yes. There are a few things about School Point, the current site that we use, that I think Renee and I have talked about that as well. Like the website has changed over the years. It's evolved as schools use social media more, and they use some of their own in-house sites as well. And so sometimes we might have some dead pages that are on some of this, and we've really tried to clean that up as much as possible, but it is gonna be kind of a new, hopefully fresh start and a new look and be able to create a site that's going to really make sure that we have the resources available to our parents, but we can kind of tailor it to meet our needs.
There was a $4,500 price tag, I was just wondering what that was for.
That is for that, so we pay, that was about how much we were paying anyway for our other one as well, so it's just under $5,000 to maintain the website on a daily basis, so it's pretty comparable to what we were paying. So, Online Learning Academy, and I'm gonna let Billy talk a little bit about this as well, but this is something that we're going to be offering for the next school year. You can see a couple of the highlights that we have in regards to, it's meant to meet the needs K through 12. You want to talk a little bit about that? Yeah.
So, with regard to the Online Learning Academy, this is something that I've talked to several of you prior to, a few years prior to this moment in time to discuss the possibility of this. I know Fayette County they've utilized a certain, I guess, not on the platforms the right way, but they structured theirs in a certain way, and it seems like they've made some adjustments to theirs. And I think that's what we're seeing is everybody that's been going down this path is finding that whatever they've got, maybe it doesn't meet their needs, maybe it does, but everybody's making tweaks to it. We just need to start with something to know where to go. Yeah. So what we have done is, before Brent Allen left on his military leave, he was kind of the point person, and we pulled in Maria quite quickly, and we just started walking through, what would make the most sense for us in the time frame that we have and with the resources that we have to make this work. So when you look at it and you see, 3 certified staff and a classified staff, this is kind of going with the assumption that maybe we just point a couple hundred kids. We're looking at it in terms of having someone that has experience and background as an elementary person, someone with middle school background, someone with high school background. Also within the component of those 3 individuals, want to make sure we've got somebody that has an understanding for the difficulties with high school schedules and what that might look like with coming in and going out from both in person to online, as well as the fact that like within the platforms, like Edgenuity, for instance, has some CTE offerings within it, but it might not line up with some of the things, some of the pathways we might have. So just having that person to keep them out of the weeds a little bit with regard to that. Also too, trying to think about how do we encompass this in such a way where we kind of have somebody in charge, but doing it in such a way we're not adding a whole nother person. So really the thought process behind it is to have, again, 3 certified people, one of which would serve as an administrator, but also serve as covering the students at their age range. One person serving as a counselor, but also kind of checking in on the students at their age range, and then an elementary person as well, and then having an administrative assistant to kind of cover all of that. With regards to the platform, again, we're not going to get super in the weeds on how well is the platform that we choose to use. Edgenuity is what we're looking at. How well does that match up to the curriculum? They've been approved for these purposes. We're going to start with what we've got, and we can refine that from there if we have to. The other thing with regard to it is thinking about growth. Let's say, for whatever reason, we're way off and we've got 800 kids that are interested in this. It could be that we're still able to utilize just 3 certified people and maybe pull in a few instructional aides to kind of follow along within the platform to let people know, oh, hey, you need to really check in on Johnny. Because what we will make a part of this is we will require that they'll understand they've got to come in person for state testing. They've got to come in person for any kind of universal screeners that we're asking them to participate in. And we also want to make sure that they understand if you're struggling, you've got to be able to come in for remediation. So that way, those people, those 3 individuals might be serving a role where they don't have a whole lot of one-on-one involvement with the kid unless the kid needs it. I do believe, though, part of the process will be we are going to make sure there is at least one time a week where there is kind of a group time for maybe all the, like for instance, the elementary person will have a group time for all the kindergartners. And all the kindergartners come in and they just kind of have a group. Some of it can be more social than anything. It could be just a chance for them to get together and talk about Pokemon cards or whatever kind of cards are out there now that kids look at. But that kind of thing. We'll also try and provide some opportunities for some in-person stuff, maybe at the library, maybe somewhere else, where if people want to be involved in it, they can, but they don't have to. So, you know, just, again, starting out, and that's the other piece to this too, is we're thinking about this, also looking at the fact that, again, we're a growth district, and I've been shouting that from the rooftops so people understand that we've got some obstacles that have come with the pandemic for us, you know, and we don't just have unlimited funds to go at this with. But we are going to be able to, through ESSER funds, we'll be able to fund this. And it could be a situation where we find that, you know what, we can pay, it pays for itself because we bring in new students to the district that aren't already accounted for. Again, don't know until we do it, but I don't know why we don't jump in. You know, at least at that point we'll know, and we'll get a sense for what we're able to do as far as meeting the needs.
Where are they gonna physically be?
The actual staff, me and Dwayne have
For bringing in?
Me and Dwayne have talked a little bit about that. We've got some options. We haven't nailed that one down yet. But again, they're not going to require a whole lot of space. If you know, it could be that the three people even share a room, perhaps, that's their office space, and then they have a separate room that's a meeting space for kids. So we've got some flexibility there with where it needs to make the most sense. And that one isn't got to have that answer today kind of situation. Certainly wanted to get you all involved in this because of the fact that the human resources aspect of this will require board action, and there's a waiver that goes along with it, because in the past, to get credit for students that were online prior to pandemic, it was performance-based. Well, now there's a waiver out there to where a student can check in the morning and a student can check in the afternoon, and it would be no different than a student checking in and getting attendance credit for that child while they were in person at the school. So there's that little, I guess, wrinkle. So that waiver, and again, all of those things I'm talking about, we wanted to kind of talk, you know, that's why I thought about the work session. It's a lot to hit you over the head with, give you a chance if there's different things that, you know, speaks to you as far as, well, hey, I've got some questions about this, that, or the other. That way we can address them so that when it comes time for the waiver, for looking at the position.
This is purely optional, right? There's no component of this that's working through Phoenix where
This
based on
is separate from
something the child
Phoenix.
may be assigned.
No, this is totally optional, separate from Phoenix. I talked to Laura a little bit about that too, just to make sure she didn't think, you know, hey,
Sure,
I
because
have all
because
this.
initially, Cardinal Academy's model had,
Correct.
you know, was
And
working
they'll
with
still have their
Engineering
piece
still-
to it because they have it through that credit recovery piece. But again, this is a different kind of beast. One of the things, you know, Mr. Kidwell and I both are familiar with some individuals that have reached out in years past, and they wanted to continue what they were doing, not being in person, but then they wanted to be able to take advantage of being a part of our school activities and clubs and those kinds of things. Through this model, they would be able to do that. So we would assign them a home school, and then from there, if they wanted to be on the golf team, they could do that. If they wanted to be an FFA, they could do that. They could be able to do all of those things. And that's what we perhaps see as potentially a draw to draw in some folks that maybe wouldn't normally consider here. Maybe they're doing homeschool and they're kind of happy with what they got, but they're like, you know what, I'm willing to take a stab at this because I like that aspect of my child having an opportunity for some of these, you know, different aspects. Yeah, different aspects.
What about the kid that's an advanced student in high school and they want to double up on their math freshman year because their 6-period schedule doesn't allow them to get to where they need to be for AP calculus? Are we offering that student, is that an option for them to take just one extra class?
So we're starting off, that's kind of an end in mind,
Okay.
I guess, because we're also thinking about the possibility down the road of perhaps we have kids that are on the highway. Maybe they do part of their schedule this way. Maybe you got a kid who.
Now, we see that at the high school level for these students for whom a 6-period schedule doesn't, you know, they want that all the APs, but they're also an athlete that wants physical, you know, the fitness piece, and they want to be in chorus, and it's just not there.
Well, and again,
They just pick up the basics.
you know, I go back to thinking about, I think about teacher certifications. I think about just pathways for our kids and opportunities for our kids as they leave us and go to higher education. And I see the institutions that are more accepting of the change and understand that, look, the world's changing, we gotta change with it, or we're gonna be left behind. And that's kind of how I see this. This gives us an opportunity to try and provide those variety of opportunities. We're looking at some other things too with some of our high schools, with some of their scheduling that might also create some time in the schedule for additional opportunities, but this might be that.
What I'm hearing is initially what you're looking at is full-time enrollment only.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, that is correct. And again, because we don't want to take on too much. You know, this is, it's different for us, so we want to make sure we can do what we want to do with it well first, and then go from
I think we see all the possibilities that could be open to us through starting something like this and where it could be years from now. But I think we all, like, we know we have to start somewhere. And I think this is an opportunity for us to start and like you said, start smaller, but start well and make sure that we build on that program.
And it's kind of, it's interesting because it's forced us to kind of rethink, you know, House Bill 563 with the open borders piece. While that's a totally different thing, it's also not, because it's forced us to rethink, okay, well, so what about out-of-district kids? Are we accepting them for this too? And if we are, you know, where's the line on that? And if they're not successful with this, are we sending them back to their home district? Or are we keeping them here and sticking them to a home school? Or, you know, what do we do? So there's these other things that have come up with this, and it also, you know, makes you think about, you know, I've talked a little bit with a few of you about the thought with 563 and maybe charging some sort of fee to come to Scott County from another district. Because, you know, and the reason that I go to this with the 563 is the fact that if we have a district around us that isn't offering this, that just as some of our kids went to other counties this year, we might see that.
It would definitely be a draw, I would think.
Yeah, yeah, so.
I think and we want to make sure that, I think we know that the best thing that we can provide for our students is in person. But there's the reality that there are some who are not able to be with us in person still. And so we want to provide an opportunity to make sure that we're using the resources we have within our district and making them available to all of our students that are here in Scott County. And when they're ready and they're able to come back to in person, then we are welcoming them the next day. Like, we'll take them in right away. But this does open that door and allow us to make sure that some of our families that maybe have chosen homeschooling, that they're able to tap into some of the resources that we do have, and that we're at least able, you know, that way we can kind of know where they're at and how they're progressing in their learning as well. So that helps that if they do decide to come back, that we've been able to be a part of that process with them.
We've got a very intentional plan to, one, we don't want to, we're not trying to shout from the rooftops about this, because again, I think in person, I just think in person is the way
This
to
is
go.
really in our counselors. Our counselors should be the ones who are recognizing the students
Exactly.
that are,
Yes.
Counselors,
that are best suited for this and encouraging that it's not something that.
so counselors and principals would be the ones that, they'll know that, I mean, you would know,
Yeah.
those 5 to 10 kids in your school that you're like, yeah, that, you know, this is, I need to talk to them about this, because that sets them up for perhaps being more successful than what they were. I presented this at a community group. I shared just the, you know, here's something we're looking at. I got to talk to the board about it and talk to them a little bit about it. And there were, unbeknownst to me, you know, there were some homeschool families in there, and there was also a parent who, you know, the child's dealing with some things, and we talked afterwards, and he was like, this is total, and I could see this being something that would be successful for my child. So, and then to speak to that homeschool piece, we are going to, you know, we're not beating anybody over the head with it. We're going to say, hey, we just want to make you aware as someone who's been participating in homeschool, this is what we're offering. Feel free to keep doing what you're doing, but here's what we're offering, here's what advantages you might see as something that you might want to consider, and we'll see what we get from that. So.
The counselor that is in the online learning academy, I think it's going to be crucial too, because of that, you know, imagining at all levels, 100% online remote learning, there is a mental health piece of that.
Correct.
The check-in, are you okay? Are you doing the work? Are you successful? Are you managing your education while keeping your social and mental health?
And that's where I was really,
Right, yeah,
that's again, why I wanted to talk about this, because you see 3 and you're like, what? Are you for real? But when you start seeing that if we're really, really intentional about the 3 individuals, we're piecing it together to where we've
It's
got
just, yeah,
it all
It's gonna have to be
covered.
the right people, because it's
Yeah.
really gonna be a different kind of counseling role.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, there's, Edgenuity, Meade County is who we talked to, and actually, I know Brent had talked to several different counties, and there's lots of different ones that are out there. But as far as what we felt like we needed, where we needed to start in Scott County, Meade County has a program that they've been using the last 2 years that is very similar to what we were thinking as far as starting out. So we've been able to reach out with them, and actually they even shared their Google site, and so we were able to
That's
use
great.
that to start to create one. So they've been a great resource to us as well, and just kind of talking through the logistics of, okay, so how many people is it, and what's their day look like, and they'll continue to be a resource to us as we kind of figure out.
Yeah, if there's somebody that's doing it right.
Yes.
Yeah,
exactly.
At one time, I think they had either 6 or 7 people, and they had 1,600 kids. That
On
number was,
some,
that
on
was,
some level, participating, I see.
well, like, full on.
Full
Yeah.
time, 1,600?
Yes,
Wow.
yes.
I think that was last year when everybody was kind of in and out a lot, yeah. This year, I think it's tapered down quite a bit, and they've been really helpful in letting us know, like, that sounds like a lot of kids to one, but you're letting Edgenuity do what it does well. You're letting the technology platforms excel in what they do, and differentiating learning for kids, and then it's that person to check in and make sure that they're staying accountable and that they're completing
Good
their
place,
activities.
yeah, it's successful for them. I'm not familiar with Imagine Learning, but I am very familiar with Edgenuity.
They're from the
Nick
state.
and Elizabeth actually took an Edgenuity class, they took honors geometry in summer school as freshmen, which is one of the reasons why I was asking about that. And then, when I was still in high school, I was working with Jaretta, with Edgenuity and moving students back and forth, and it's no joke, it's
Yeah.
not easy, it is as legitimate curriculum as I've seen, and the breadth of, the options. I was always really impressed with that program, obviously I haven't seen it recently.
Imagine Learning is kind of the elementary arm of it.
Okay.
That was what I
Yeah.
was gonna ask.
Okay.
I use Imagine Learning. So will there be someone to go back and check on, I mean, because like you get like data, and as a teacher, you have to, if the kid isn't learning, as a teacher in person, I have to physically go and help that student. So is it gonna be those 3
Yes. And-
certified people and the classified person?
Correct, but also too, again, this situation, we're encouraging in person. If you're demonstrating that you can't be successful, then there's that come in piece where, like you were saying,
Okay, that's
the teacher deals with the students and their needs at that point, with the hope that, okay, we're to the point, we've got you where you need to be, and you're back kind of on your own. But if need be, then it's not an option. And I'm going into this too, understanding it might not be something that everybody can be successful at, and that's just.
Yeah, I mean, it's gonna take a student that is independent,
And discipline.
very
Disciplined,
disciplined,
to
yeah.
self-manage that
Yeah.
time piece, and,
Okay.
or have parents that are able to split
Correct.
time
Yeah.
periods, yeah. Because like I said,
And parent support, yeah.
at the high school level, at Edgenuity, it's legitimate curriculum, it's
Yes.
not.
Well, we also have the staff support now, where before, because Grace did a class in middle school, and I know other students that have as well. And I feel like now that we're looking at it in a totally different realm, where we have staff members who are overseeing that process. Even with what we just did, the way I see it, like just at the start of the pandemic, when we knew that they closed down the schools and we had to try to get computers out and what we needed to do. And I feel like that was a little jumping off point for us, just to kind of see what was going on and what we need to do now better. And I feel like this is really exciting because now we've got that focus on that, and it's a piece that we could really,
So you're not
learn from.
imagining the student who says, I want to enroll in the online learning academy and spend my day on a computer, but I want to come into a classroom at Scott County Schools and do it. That, we're not looking at that. This is, you're doing it at home.
Now, again, they'll have some space, so that's not I mean, again,
Yeah,
some of,
I'm just curious.
just like that one, that's a cool, I mean, why not? And that's the thing is, I'm trying to make sure we've got people in place that are of that, well, why not? Let's look for a solution
The
instead
sixth
of a.
grader who maybe shouldn't be at home alone all day, but who is best served.
Right.
I don't know.
And I mean,
Or
we're
needs to get
especially thinking this first year, we're thinking about those families that maybe are already homeschooling and are committed to their child's education and are making that a priority. And really, again, just tapping in and saying, we have some resources to help make sure that your child is prepared and progressing well in their education. I think it's a little bit different way of thinking of things. I think starting out, we're looking for families that are committed to being a part of that process with us. And it won't be those certified teachers doing Zoom lessons all day long. That's not what this is. This is, like you said, a very disciplined student and a family and a supportive family who's going to make sure that they're progressing, and a staff member to check in as needed on them.
And it's one of those things too, because, so we looked at different groups and platforms and who's doing what and how successful are you and what do you think about it. And, with the Meade County process, it was almost like Terry said it was okay, like for real. And they were like, actually, we had a presentation, unbeknownst to us, somebody from KD was in the room and came up to us afterwards and says, this is exactly what we were wanting online learning to look like. Everybody's making this way too hard. We want it to be this way where the facilitator, it's kind of the role that the three individuals will serve in, are pushing in when need be, but giving that freedom to the individual for that independence, for them to kind of guide the learning.
And they are gonna provide that waiver. It's later on this month that they'll put that out there for us to apply for that waiver. And there are some requirements that the state will require as far as attendance and making sure that we are tracking that. And so when that comes out, then we'll make sure that we have all that.
April 20th, you mentioned,
Yes.
that's when STLP is, and that's also in line. They scheduled the state board meeting to run up against that. I should be there too for our facilities waiver that we talked about. So unless we get heard before then, House Bill 639 is in full effect. So we'll see. Fingers crossed on all that. Any kind of questions or anything
Do we have a certain number yet, or is it still too early?
as far as students? We do not, because again, some of it, I gotta start with you all. You all gotta approve, you all gotta give me a little bit of approval. I'll also say Mr. Bruins is in the back of the room. Scott Bruins is also, he's stepping in for the next year. Stand up if you don't mind, just so everybody can kind of see you. He's gonna be filling in here for the next year, for Mr. Allen as he's out on his military leave. And he's already checking out and making sure, because this is so new, we want to make sure, is there anything we're missing as far as checkoffs that we need to get board approval from, or a form from Katie? And at this time, it looks like we've got everything as far as we can be going with it, right?
Yes, sir. I've already been in contact. This is my first day on the job, so this morning board meeting
Welcome.
this evening here, baptism by fire. Yeah, I've been in contact with Meade County already this afternoon. I've taken a look at the waiver that we're discussing. There's 15 critical points that we as a district have to agree to and abide by. So I'm sure that District Park or everybody else has already looked at those 15 points, but I'm going to take part of this week and sort of digest those.
So then, kind of to your point, as far as how many kids, then at that point, once we've kind of got that rolling, then we can push out and start having contact with our homeschool families. We can start having contact with our school principals and guidance counselors and start getting a feel for what that number looks like. And then at that point, depending on what we're looking at, that might be when I might come back, if need be, and say, hey, here's what we've got. So we've got to start somewhere.
So another, go ahead, did you have a question? Okay. Another exciting thing is, and I talked about it earlier, is moving to a one-to-one program here in Scott County. I'm thrilled about this and about what this can mean for our students and our staff here. So you can see some of the pallets that we received that I feel like I've got computers coming out of my ears right now. So we have a ton. We've taken over all of Dwayne's bays, and so he's ready for us to. We've outstayed our welcome. We're going to find a new spot for all those, but he's been super helpful in making sure that, and the maintenance team has been great in letting us borrow some of their space for a little while, because it is quite a bit to see that many devices. You hear 6,500 devices, and then to see it is pretty remarkable. So it is filling up a lot of space. But and our STCs are going to help roll that out. Billy and I have talked about using those first couple weeks right after school to get these enrolled. It's about Matt and TC and I enrolled 450 in a day and a half, so we were able to get quite a few, and that's to prepare for the end of the year and make sure that Great Crossing High School has enough devices to be able to do testing at the end of this year. So we were able to kind of play with some different systems, and I feel really good about moving forward and how we're going to get that rolled out. But I have created, inside your folder is my suggested device rotation plan. One-to-one is awesome, but if we are not sustaining it and don't have a plan to keep that going forward, we're going to be in the same situation that we were coming into this year, where we've got 4,600 that are hitting end of life at the same time. So, so I have created a plan, a 10-year plan, in what I propose that we do as far as maintaining and continuing to supplement our program to make sure that we're staying one-to-one. I've talked quite a bit with Woodford County, who has been one-to-one for about 10 years, and so it's been really neat to talk with them and ask, what did you figure out when you started this out? Help me learn from your mistakes and help me learn from your successes, and I want to be able to roll out something that's amazing for our students going forward. So the lime green are all of our ECF, those 6,500 devices. That's kind of how we're rolling that out, and that is showing that would follow each student. So I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the differences in the way we would do one-to-one versus the way we do it now, but one of the things is it would follow those students. So devices would be assigned to students individually. So that kind of shows why there's a stair step, and that those would stay with the student for a 4-year rotation, and then we would be purchasing new devices as they enter into 2nd grade, 6th grade, and 10th grade.
Just like leasing a car.
Correct, yes, yes. And there are some things that I'm going to propose in order to help make that sustainable for our district as well, and to keep that moving forward. It is, to keep that going, it is about $600,000 when we're talking about 3 grade levels at a time. And that's a high number too, because I want to be realistic as I'm thinking about that and planning moving forward. So some of the things that would be different, like I said, we would be assigning them to individual students. It would be no longer bring your own device. And there's a couple reasons for that. One of the biggest ones is the safety component. When we have students that are bringing in their own devices, they're not necessarily on our network. When we have students that are on our network, we can monitor which sites they're going to. We can monitor inappropriate sites. We can monitor self-harm. We can make sure that they're receiving all the filters that we have as well, to make sure that they're not being inundated with things that are inappropriate. So I think it's important that as we go one-to-one, really try to reiterate, we need to make sure that we're providing a safe learning environment for our students as well. I mean, we wouldn't just drop our kids off at the mall, our 5-year-old at the mall, and give them, free rein to just do whatever they like. We need to make sure that we're providing the appropriate boundaries and structures for our students to stay safe when they're in our building. So,
There'll probably be pushback on that, I'm sure we're all.
correct,
Can
yeah,
imagine that the kid that's got the Mac, who wants to use the Mac, who's familiar with the Mac, is gonna say, I want to use the Mac.
correct, yeah.
Whereas the previous conversation was like, oh yeah, this one's got a few, like you said, there's some pieces where there might be some pushback on
Yeah.
some.
But, I mean, it is what it is, it's
Yeah.
every change.
And I went and sent my kid with his Mac to 6th grade.
You'd be shocked at the number that do.
Yes, I am.
They do with the cell phone, it's no different.
Right, right.
No, I mean, there would change, you get,
Absolutely.
you get, you lose, and there's just, it'll be.
And the next one, the next bullet is one that I expect that's a new thing as well, in charging a technology fee for our
Right.
students as well.
Okay, yeah, I just worry that the parent who's gonna say, look, I went out and spent my hard-earned money to buy this computer for my child, and you're gonna make me pay more money to get a different computer.
Correct.
When they got one.
So as we're rolling this out year after year,
Yes.
parents will be more,
Sure, I'm just,
Yeah,
I'm just,
yeah,
I'm just
yeah.
pointing out that.
I
this-
absolutely
we should
expect that it will be an
anticipate that there's
adjustment,
gonna be-
yeah.
There's gonna be an adjustment period for the people that are.
One thing that I didn't highlight on that last one, and it is on this one as well, is that with this, and hopefully, one of the things that would make it a little bit easier to swallow the pill of, paying a technology fee is, And one of the things that Woodford County has done is, when they're purchasing for 10th graders, they have them 10th grade, 11th grade, 12th grade, and then those students graduate with that device, so they get to keep that device. So basically, it is kind of like leasing, where you're paying into this program every single year in Scott County schools, but we're telling you when you graduate from Scott County schools, we're giving you a device to take.
Sure.
On
And
that.
you know, over time, it will become
Yes.
sort of an adjusted component that's just part of it.
Yes.
Is that why the fee is higher in middle school and high school than in elementary school?
Yeah, so the fee is, the reality is that our high schoolers are utilizing Google Classroom quite a bit as it is right now, where our elementary is not quite there yet. I mean, I think we have a lot of our, especially in our intermediate levels, are using those programs quite a bit. And I think we saw last year, and kindergarten on computer is not the same as kindergarten with manipulatives and hands-on. And so I do expect that our high schoolers are probably going to get more use out of them, and that's why that's been staggered a little bit. When I talked to Woodford County, they were only charging for secondary, and I felt like our elementary, I felt like a technology fee is appropriate for both levels. So it is a little bit less just because of the amount of usage they might get. Now, I do expect that to probably go up over the years, because I do expect that we will, as our teachers are becoming more and more familiar with all of the access they have and the ways that they can tailor their lessons to meet that could go up. I will also say the take-home charge is an additional piece. So the technology piece would be, the technology fee would be a fee. And so, as you all know, with fees, students who qualify for free and reduced lunch have the ability to waive those fees as well. So that is a fee. The take-home is an actual charge that would apply to all students, free and reduced or not. And that's optional. They don't have to take that device home, but if they do want to take their device home, they would have to pay that take-home. So the only place where I would see that really wouldn't be optional is ECS, because our students are starting the day in a different location than they would the second half of the day, so they would really have to take home their device on a daily basis. When I talked with Woodford County, they have about 80% of their students take home their devices on a daily basis. And so we certainly want to encourage that. We want our students to take it home like they take their backpacks and their other materials home, and charge it at home and then bring it back for the next day. So we certainly want to encourage that. Again, it is going to be checked out to that student. I know as a parent, when my son is in middle school, high school, I want him to bring it home so I can check and make sure that it's safe, and I've looked over it, and I make sure that he's being responsible and teaching some responsibility. I will say, I recognize that this is going to take a lot of us teaching responsibility to our students as well. So there's a lot of components that come with this that is going to be teaching responsibility and making sure that we're
It's
prepared.
an extra few check boxes for teachers as well.
Well, and that was kind of, to that point, that was my concern, that was one of my first concerns when we really started talking about it, talking to the different districts, but again, it's not
You know,
as
you're really
complicated
walking
as.
in with your test.
How does it look for the free and reduced students?
So for the free and reduced, they again could waive the technology fee, so they would not have that fee. It would just be the take-home option for them. And I will say, I'm always going to do what's best for students. I mean, I'm always going to make sure that our students have their needs. It's the same type of situation that, you know, if I have a first grader who needs markers, we're going to make sure that this is becoming a material. And so I'm not going to withhold from students. We're going to make sure that they have what they need. But there is some responsibility in making sure that, you know, there are some charges that we have to, again, in order to keep this going forward, $600,000 a year is
Not,
To make it sustainable.
correct.
And that's been the big thing here.
Correct, yes, that is, I would love to not have to charge anybody anything.
Right, absolutely.
But we also know that we're not swimming in money, and so we have to make sure that we are creating a system that allows us to keep this going forward.
that was probably the biggest aha for me, is in, you know, how on earth do people keep this afloat? And in some districts, I'm finding that they've just they've just been lucky, in that things happen where, oh, well, we got this, like they got this grant, so, well, we got this grant, so we're not gonna have to, you know, do anything with it. But the sustainability part was the part that we were most
I mean, I could
Sure.
take the 6,500 and we could say, that's great, and then we could just deal with that in 4 years when they expire. But then, like I said, I don't feel like I'm doing, I don't feel like I'm responsibly creating a system if we're not figuring out how to keep this rolling. And that's why I wanted to show, this is a 10-year plan. This is, and once there will be a lot of bumps and bruises as we're getting up and going, but the goal is that becomes the way that we do things in Scott County and that we continue
And
to
so
do.
are we visualizing, and to some degree I know it's already happening, because it's happening when I was still in the classroom, transitioning our old school textbooks into a digital version that is uploaded into the second grade classroom.
I think a lot of our materials are already very
Right, that's what I'm
digital. I
saying,
mean, I know we have
it's
some
happening.
teachers in
Yeah.
that.
It's
know
already
it's
there.
there.
You don't have to worry about it, it's already.
Yeah, it's already
But
there.
it does kind of open the door to us perhaps looking at different
Mhm.
resources out there that
That's
we
what I'm saying,
probably
with
haven't
our-
as a
with
district.
moving
Yeah.
digital, so that things are already there and we're
Yes.
not duplicating.
I wanted to, I'm sorry, I wanted to add in just quickly, I know in speaking with Billy, as you guys have been looking at this for some time now,
Mhm.
this isn't an overnight, a weekly thing here. You guys have put a
Yeah.
lot of time because we've been talking about this for a long time.
Yeah.
And we pushed.
And I
to get
appreciate
this
that.
Ready for you all.
Yeah.
Because we're getting
I mean,
close to the end of school year.
In
Well-
our district, like you said, Woodford County, 10 years ago. Franklin County, I don't know, I mean, years, Harrison County, we are way far. Like, I've been advocating for this at least 8 years since I've been on the
Well,
board.
we've got the perfect storm. We have Joe Pat out in the county.
Mhm.
We've got those things coming together. We just had a pandemic. We had some ESSER funds come through. We've gotten this grant. We have you in place. We have a plan in place. We have people who are open to this. So it's the perfect storm.
Yeah.
It's a great time to jump off and do this, absolutely. But I want to add in here, from what I
Yeah.
understand in speaking with Billy, is that I want to just point out, from what I understand, you've been calling districts from across the state
Correct.
to say, hey, what's your plan?
Yes.
So after talking to, I just want to point that out to everybody, after talking to a multitude of people and
Correct.
districts,
Yes.
this is what you feel,
Yes.
you guys feel is a great plan to present to us on how we can sustain this program over the years.
Right.
To be clear, I don't love it. I don't love that we're looking at additional fees for our
None of us
families.
do,
I don't,
right.
But
We
I'm
understand
also,
it, we have to understand.
again,
We
six
have to
hundred
understand.
thousand, that's a decent raise for
Yeah.
our staff, so
Yeah,
there's
absolutely.
things that, we can't have everything, so.
No, but I just want to point that
Yeah.
out, because I know that there's been a lot of thought, there's been a lot of thought behind all of this, and a lot of research behind it all, that a lot of folks don't simply understand.
Right,
This
right.
isn't just a fly-by-night, hey, we just found out that this school district did it, so let's do it
Yes.
too. It's a lot of time and a lot of effort
Yeah, I
behind
have
research.
folders and resources
Yeah.
upon resources,
Yeah.
and I'm very fortunate. I think that one of the things that Kentucky does really well is that I'm able to meet with other CIOs on a monthly basis as well, and so being able to pick their brains and our team, Matt, TC, and Mike and I traveled to Woodford County and said, show us what you do, we wanna know, we had a whole list of questions of like, okay, well, what do you do for this, and what do you do for this, and what happens when this happens? And Woodford County is a smaller district, so some of their things, just by scale, we're having to think through, well, this looks very different in Scott County because we have multiple high schools and multiple, just a lot more elementary schools and thinking through some of the logistics. But when we think about a sustainable program, when I see a district who has been doing it for 10 years and has kept it going, and he told us, he's like, it requires the support of your board. It requires everybody being on board and saying, this is where we're going, this is our vision for Scott County, and this is how we're gonna make it happen. And yeah, I would love to be able to provide free technology for all of our students. And it's a big price tag that comes with it. There's a lot of components that come with one-to-one. Even, like I said, the security piece and making sure that our teachers are equipped and feel equipped to be able to teach in the digital environment, and making sure that we are, educating our parents, and making sure one of the things we haven't done is a digital driver's license, really beefing up our digital citizenship for our students. We're giving you a device, and we want to make sure you understand the appropriate way to use this device as well. So that's one of the things, it's part of our technology plan too, moving forward.
I have one question.
Yeah,
Or comment, but, the $20 take-home fee, what about on NTI days?
so, so the way that, I mean, it's essentially saying, if you want to be able to take it home for NTI, then you need to pay that. If you have a device at home and your kids are good to go, that's fine, you can opt out of doing that completely.
So that's
We
when
continue
you
to
can
offer
talk
paper
about-
packets.
Well,
For
yeah.
NTI as well.
I mean, I think we want to be able to get to more
We wanna get to
digital
more.
options, yes. And I think that this, without being one-to-one, we haven't even had that ability to really move to that more.
Sure, and I agree with you, when people that have their own devices are gonna opt out of the take home because they're gonna wanna use their own device at home.
Right. But I was just also thinking too, that if we're gonna be charging a certain amount of money, which I agree with, maybe we can think about supplies for the school year. I mean, like, as a teacher, I mean, cause like now, my school is one-to-one. I don't need as much paper.
Correct.
My students don't, and I'm a fifth grade teacher too. Now kindergarten, they're gonna need crayons
Right.
and all that, but they're not gonna need it as much.
Right.
Because, we're gonna be really surprised, once the teachers start using technology, how the old school way of doing things is just gonna fall to the wayside.
Right.
And so that's something I guess we can, really communicate with our schools that, okay, we're gonna be charging this amount of money. We wanna also be respectful
Mhm.
to the families, and let's not ask for an abundant amount of supplies when a lot of things are gonna be covered on this computer.
Correct. And that's one of the things that our operations team, because I get to meet with our operations team as well, and Dwayne and Renee, that's one of the things we talked about is there are a lot of fees and things, and so are there ways that we can offset that? Are there ways that we can tap into some of our, so I know that we have been talking about what are some possible ways that we can help offset that burden for families. And that's part of why I staggered as well, is because when I talked to Woodford County, they charge more they charge significantly more for their high school, and I feel like that would be a hard pill to swallow in year one. I wanted to kind of stagger to build up to that, to allow for all parties to be able to kind of shift to, okay, I don't need as many supplies as maybe I asked for initially. Maybe I only need to ask for, I don't need one per student in my class, or I don't need as much paper as maybe we asked for in the past, that I know some have put on their supply list. So I do expect that as we continue to move and everybody kind of starts to see this is the way we're moving and this is the way our district is moving, then we will have less of a need to ask for quite so many tangible materials. I do know it's going to be a new way of thinking, and I recognize that, and I also, again, like I kind of said at the beginning, we had to learn a lot of things on the fly, and so I want to continue to tap into those. We had some great instruction. I know it was really, really hard, but we also had some great instruction that our teachers were able to do using digital resources, and our teachers learned a lot, and they absolutely knocked it out of the park on the fly. And so I think hopefully this will allow us to ease back into, okay, we can still use a lot of these digital platforms. And one of the things that was most surprising to me when I took on this role was that we have 1,800 kids at Great Crossing High School, and we had about 300 devices at the beginning of this year. And so this is going to, Great Crossing High School has not had all the same devices that some of our other schools do. And so I think that's going to be really neat to be able to see a lot of our students at Great Crossing be able to kind of take on more digital. And the teachers have done a fabulous job and been able to utilize phones and other devices, but this will hopefully allow our teachers and our students to know that they have those devices on a daily basis, so they can tailor lessons to meet that. One of the additional things is right now we do not currently charge for damages, and that is so those 2,250 devices that we have that we're replacing, that's coming out of technology budget, and that's really challenging. So moving forward, there is a proposed, it's a discounted amount, but when students are breaking devices, that they would be charged accordingly. And it's and there's a sheet in there that kind of lays out the suggested charges for those things. Things will happen, and that's totally fine. And we're not going to charge. That even shows that even if that device got completely run over, we're still not charging you the full amount still. A device is about $300 per Chromebook, which is manageable. It's good, but we're not going to charge anybody a crazy amount of money. And so that would hopefully, in talking to other districts who've used that, who've charged for devices, they are able to accumulate some funds that they need to as well. So there's with the program and accidental protection, we're able to use some of, when they fall within that accidental protection, that 3-year window, we're able to offset that cost, and the program that we bought the devices from, they're able to provide some of those supplies, but that does again help offset some of the costs of building that program and continuing. Again, all that money is going towards pushing more devices to kids every single year. And again, the graduating with devices. So that was the structure. Like I said, it's kind of increasing as we get rid of some of those materials. And I tried to make the take home, keep it $20 at the secondary level and elementary being $5 on a yearly basis. I don't want it to be a crazy amount, so that if our students, if they do qualify for free and reduced lunch, they would still be able to take home a device for $5. Now, I will say in elementary, the way that we wrote that up would be that those would mostly stay in the classroom, and that based on teacher discretion or district discretion, we would send those home. So you wouldn't have to worry about a second grader. I mean, I have a second grader home. I don't really want him traveling with it every single day. I mean, I've seen how he, books that come home. I mean, he's as responsible as he can be. I mean, it's still a lot. So we would be able to send those if we start to see that we're in inclement weather, like those months, we might be able to send those home on a daily basis during those months versus every single day. I would like to see a lot of our secondary taking those home on a daily basis.
Is there any place in here that tells the high school students, parents, that at the end of it, they get that device?
That is going to be, not
I haven't
Not
seen
yet,
it like
no,
that.
there's not yet, and that was honestly, when I first wrote up that 10-year plan, I wasn't able to get the devices with those graduating students until 2027, but then I was able to kind of rework it, and I feel confident that we can send those devices home in 2025, which it works out nicely, because some of those we'd have to inventory or surplus anyway, so that is going to be, as we, I think, communicate out some of these changes, that's going to be one of the things that we're going to really highlight to make sure it, again, offsets some of
Go
that.
wrong with that piece of it out in 20, well,
So our current 10th graders would be able to graduate.
yeah, there you go.
So our 11th graders this year, and obviously our seniors are not graduating with theirs, we're going to
Right.
be using the devices we already have. And I will say, some of those devices hit end of life earlier than others. We can push those down to our K-1 students. We're not doing necessarily all the testing and stuff that they would need to have those updates on a regular basis. But with this plan, we are still keeping those devices. They should not be getting old. We're going to keep. I mean, it is like a brand new car. When the second you start using it, you've got to start
Oh, yeah.
preparing to repair it or replace it at some point. So, but yeah, that is one piece that we'll need to communicate out a little bit more, that they would be able to have those upon
I will be
graduation.
very specific on telling them what
Which
class
group, yeah,
was
yes.
gonna get them.
Yes.
The only other thought I'd have along those same lines is someone with a 11th or 12th grader is gonna say, why am I paying the same amount?
Correct.
And I
Yeah,
don't know that would even come up,
Guess
but
they don't pay as long.
Right, correct. That's kind of my thought, is that really
you got a
they're,
good answer,
our
I'm all
current
good.
11th graders are gonna pay 1 year, so they don't get to take it home for $20. They don't get a new device, but the ones who are paying into it a couple years, yes. And if I could, I would send it home with them year one. It's just, in order to
Well,
make
that's
sure we
not
had enough
really-
for our K-1. Now, I will say, there's a third round of these ECF funds that are going to be coming out, and I will be applying for it. So if I can get more, then I'll gladly send those home with kids sooner
Right,
than
right.
later. So, I just wanna make sure that our K-1 students still have devices available to them. But otherwise,
Everybody be
but that's a
prepared
great
for that.
Yes, yep, absolutely.
Are we putting them in any kind of cases or bags or?
They're not. And it would be about $20 a device. And so, I mean, that can, again, this would be assigned to that individual student. So a parent may say, I want to put a device, or I want to put that on there because it's my kid, I don't want to pay for, that could certainly be up to the parent, and they could purchase on Amazon. We can even recommend some great cases that they might like to use.
Yeah.
And that
Maybe
can,
that's something we could say, you want to protect your device,
Mhm.
you know, click this link on Amazon,
Correct.
that this specific case will fit it.
And one of the things in the technology plan is, one of the things I want to do in a partnership is to make sure that we're letting our parents know, and including in those open house nights, here's some device care, here's some suggestions on device care. So I do want there to be some opportunities for us
You
to,
know, other
teach our
districts
parents.
have, you know, the broader device carriers,
Correct,
you know,
yeah.
you get the device and the carrier. And that's just a twofold thing, because they're padded and it protects the device.
Yes.
So,
They are pretty durable, I
Yeah.
can say. I mean, my students, and I was worried, we took our devices home, and my school paid for December, January, and February, and the kids brought them back. I mean, I have a few students that, you know, that kind of wore them out, but surprisingly, they took good care of them, they brought them back every day. I mean, we discussed it, and I mean, so it really just depends on the teacher. You know, teaching, this is the expectation, and then if they're not using them, I think that's how they get destroyed.
Right.
But if we're using for the purpose of, this is a tool that we're gonna use, you know, and I teach my kids, there's a difference between a toy and a tool.
Right.
And a tool is something that you're gonna use every day, like, you know, again, I'm an elementary person, so, you know, we are working on our car, we have a tool. We don't play with that tool. And then, you know, I'm sure you're gonna, you know, cap off whatever sites they can get on and cannot get on.
Oh, yeah, I would take points off if they came across and it wasn't charged to
Oh, yeah,
Correct,
we
yeah.
take those your points with.
Oh, yeah.
You lose those your points when you
Yeah,
don't
they
charge
lost
your computer,
points.
because you are not being ready for school.
And I hope that in assigning those to individual students, there will be, again, there needs to be some responsibility taught, and that this is your device. Now,
I took points off, it was all about responsibility.
and with we are purchasing a new asset management program as well, and that is going to allow us to track that. So I will have some surplus items that are not our brand new devices, and so if we have a student who, in the first few months of school, they've already sent theirs to the help desk to be replaced 3 times, or they keep popping the keys off the keyboards, then we will, thank you so much, we're gonna provide you with a not brand new device that you can use. I mean, so we will be able to track individual students and which ones are our frequent users. And we have, with this new program we're looking at, they've told us that there's a way for us we can send to principals like, hey, here's our kids that are showing up frequently. So if there needs to be a discipline issue.
Well, I was just thinking about kids like mine who are as gentle as giants, but is also a boy in a china shop. And, you know, he won't mean to.
Correct. And I will say, when we will have enough on surplus so that if we do have kids that are accidentally breaking things and that takes some time to repair, we will make sure we have enough in each building that we can at least we don't want a kid to not be able to access the learning in that day because they don't have their devices at the help desk. So we've got some backup plans to make sure that we can make sure that all of our kids have devices and that's not interrupting our learning. And my hope is that with these surplus ones that we're collecting, that some of those ones that don't get end of life, that's a great way that we could provide some backups to teachers. That, okay, if it didn't show up with their device or it wasn't charged appropriately, we'll have some backups available. And so we're kind of working out the logistics of what that would look like. Do we give a couple per teacher to kind of hold on to? So we're working with our STCs to figure out what's going to be the best system to make sure that we're not interrupting learning. Yeah.
That's how they get lost,
Yeah.
those extras there.
So, you know, I've talked a lot, but this is our technology plan. I have shared.
And I was
Go ahead.
just gonna say, 'cause
Yeah.
this is something that is not uncommon, you all have seen it in the past. We generally don't do a big presentation for it, so you all have been provided it ahead of time last week. So I was just gonna, maybe just 2 or 3
Yep.
points, main points on
Yep.
it, and then if they've got questions, we'll.
Absolutely. So, and you guys, as you're looking through this, if there's anything that you want me to, as you're looking through it, or you get a chance to look at it more in depth, if you want me to answer any of it, feel free to shoot me an email or you can call my cell phone and I'll go through any of it with you. So a lot of infrastructure has to do with the one-to-one program, and that's what a lot of our plan is for this upcoming year, is making sure that we've got everything we need to going forward. We're gonna do some network analysis as well over the first few bullets are things that we're gonna do within this most current year, with our phone system and auditing some lines. and looking at our cloud-based storage and utilizing our Google Drive versus some of our servers that we're paying for. But we're gonna be mostly looking at auditing some of the infrastructure we already have and making sure that we're getting the most bang for our buck with the systems that we have in place. We're gonna be doing some updating of our core, and we're gonna continue to revise some of our procedures. So a lot of systems stuff in that one. Data security, again, making sure that we are providing a safe environment for our students. We have GoGuardian that we currently pay for. Not all of our teachers are super familiar with it, and you may not be as well, but GoGuardian allows our teachers to be able to, it's a wonderful classroom management tool. You can see every kid's screen at any time, and you can see which site they're on. You can stop them when they're on a particular site. You can create scenes. So, hey, we're in math center time. I'm only allowing these 3 math websites available to you during this time, and they can set up scenes for their kids. And our teachers are using this quite a bit. Like if they're doing testing, they'll only have, you can have it where the kid can only open 2 tabs at a time, so you're not browsing, but the teacher can monitor. So it does help for some classroom management, and I think it's going to be necessary. I don't think we've had the training on that, so that is going to be a big piece going forward, that our teachers know how to use that. And so we're going to do some auditing again of some of our data disaster recovery plan, and kind of do some, again, some updating some policies, updating some procedures that we have in regards to data security, cleaning that up. And we've done a lot of work starting on that, but we've got more that we want to do. Again, one of the things that I put on here that I'd like to do, I would love to be able to report to you guys on an annual basis like this, to kind of show you, hey, here's where we're at in the technology plan, here's how we've progressed, here's what we've been able to tick off, here are some things that we're adding for the next year. This is written as a 5-year plan, but obviously there's a lot of things in year 1, and I'll revise these and add things as we go, as we accomplish things and as we need to adjust things. So that's one of the things I put on there. Is I'd love to be able to report to you guys on a yearly basis to let you know the things that are going on, how the one-on-one plan's working, and what kind of money is that producing. If we're seeing that it's bringing in a lot of money, or it's bringing in more money, and we don't need to increase that fee over time, then we won't do that. So I want to be able to report to you, okay, here's what's happened in this first year, here's what's generated, here's where I think we need to go moving forward. This is kind of the plan we wrote for 5 to 10 years, but maybe we don't need to increase that fee on an annual basis. Again, just kind of making sure that we're auditing some of our software. We have a lot of great programs in our district, but one of the things that we have moving forward into next year is we're going to look at some of our programs, Freckle, Lexia, Greenbox, and look and see how much are teachers using that? How much of an increase is it having in our student achievement? Is that the best program that we can offer them, or do we need to look at some additional programs? And we will use our digital learning coaches to help us with that rubric and audit some of our software. So I want our teachers to help make those decisions on what's going to be the most helpful for them in their classrooms. Again, some partnerships. I want to provide some learning opportunities for our parents and how to use Infinite Campus. We're moving to Infinite Campus and online registration, and we've moved to that with grading. There's some ways that we can charge some of these fees through Infinite Campus as a possibility, so it'd be kind of a one parents are already on there, so we're looking into that and seeing if that's feasible, if that's something, a route we want to go, so we'll continue to look into that. Online Learning Academy, getting that up and off the ground. And then one of the things I'd like to be able to do is to meet with our principals on a more regular basis to kind of know what are the building needs and make sure that, I was able to meet with all of them before this school year started, but I would like to be able to meet with them each semester. I've been able to go into the classrooms quite a bit this year because I'm also on the OSL team, so I get to do that side of it as well, and I still get to be in classrooms and doing observations, but I'd love to be able to meet with our principals on a more regular basis. And then our STCs, they report to principals, but as a building principal, I didn't always necessarily know what components I need to be looking for in hiring in STC, and what were the types of questions I need to be asking to make sure we have the best people that are in each spot. We have fabulous, our principals have done a great job, but it is kind of hard to know, well, what are the questions I need, what are the technology questions I need to ask to make sure that they are qualified for that job. So I would love to be able to help work with them on making sure that they feel comfortable in hiring those positions. And then digital curriculum. Obviously, we've talked a lot about ed tech tonight, and We'll continue to use and find the best tools for our teachers. One thing that I do want to build up is our co-op program. One thing that we used to have years ago, we did have co-op students in the technology department, and that's something that we have not had in the last few years, and I think it's a missed opportunity for a lot of our students. So we do plan to have a co-op student next year in our tech department, and like I said, I do want to utilize student help desk more. With our devices that we purchased, there's a way to certify our students. This is another great thing about having just 3 types of devices versus having 20 in the district. I can pay for our student help desk students to be certified in replacing HPs, which is what we've just got 6,500 of. And so they will be certified, they'll be able to use that certification outside of the building. So when they go out, they will be HP certified to make repairs on that. And so they will be qualified to make any of the repairs that anybody on my team would be able to do as well. And so we would be able to kind of, like, this is a certain priority levels that our students could take care of, and then which things would come up to us at our level. And then utilizing more technology standards, we're going to get that in there as well. And then our personalized professional learning, getting a lot more PD opportunities for our teachers. Like I said, we were able to provide a lot this upcoming summer. And I want to create some video platforms for, right now, we're going to try to use some of our Screencastify to be able to get some of our digital learning coaches and ed tech experts in the district to kind of share 5-10 minute quick videos, almost like YouTube videos that our teachers would be able to access if they would like to know how to use certain programs or learn a little bit more that don't require them to do an all-day training on it. And then I would like to implement a technology newsletter that I'm able to share out with the district. It's like ed tech or like some just even like shortcut keys and things like that we can utilize. And then I'd love to get to some more ed tech coaching as well. And then this is more have to do with Online Learning Academy and auditing our software. It's been a long meeting, but I've been there's so much that's been going on. It's really exciting. It hasn't even been a full year yet in this role, but I've absolutely loved it. And I'm really excited for Scott County and our students and our staff. And so I cannot thank you guys enough for taking time out of your week to listen to me talk about technology and all of the things that, where I want us to be able to go as a district. And I just thank you guys for your support and for listening to me brag on how awesome my team is, because they are fabulous. So.
Well, we love to hear
I
that.
appreciate your vision.
Yeah.
It's obvious you put a lot of work in it, and you're highly motivated to
Yes.
see it all be a success, and that's good to know.
We're excited to hear all of this happening.
I'm
We've
very.
been looking forward to something like this for several years.
Yeah.
So,
We appreciate it.
I
push
appreciate
forward,
it.
push forward.
Awesome, thank you. And like I said, if you guys have any questions, please feel free to email me. If there's questions that the community members are bringing to you about technology or any of our programs, feel free anytime to reach out. So, we clearly love to talk about it. So you just know.
That smile on your face says it all. I'll tell you that right now. But thank you truly for all the work, and that's why I wanted to add that in a little bit earlier, because I know how much time that you have been putting into all of this and the research, and Billy and everybody just put a lot of heart into all of this, and anything that makes it easier and better for our students is just fabulous. So I appreciate that. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Appreciate it. I could not do it. Like I said, I brag on them all the time. But my team is fantastic. Candy, she's over there all the time, trucking away at board meetings, but they're fabulous. So I hope that, that's why I put their pictures on there, so when you see them, I hope you'll say hey to them as well. But they keep everything running, and they're pretty fantastic. So between them and our STCs and our digital learning coaches, they're all kind of like, what in the world? This is completely new to us, and they've been troopers as we've been trying to implement some new things here in Scott County. So.
Thank you.
Diana, do you have a motion to approve?
Well, first of all, I want to just point out a couple things here before we do that. Number one, we're going to be talking here, or obviously do a motion here for number 4. Billy, could you please add in? Billy and I met earlier today, and So there's a multitude of things that we talked about here this evening. So what we want to do, first of all, is we're going to do a motion on the technology plan now, but it'll be at our next meeting. Billy, could you talk about that? We'll go through
Again,
approvals.
the next meeting, so I'll send an email Friday, and it'll outline all the different components of the meeting, and all of the things that tie to technology. I'll just say, hey, this ties to what we talked about with this, and with that. The waivers on there, the position creations are on there, and anything tied to the salary schedule, just that needs to be lined out specifically different, and specifically different.
I just wanted to point that out so everybody understood, you know, this is a special call meeting, a work session, which is very helpful for all of us, but that we're going to be making approvals at 2 separate
I didn't
meetings.
feel it was appropriate to hit you with all that at once and then expect you to make a decision.
Go home, think about it for a
I
minute.
wanted you to be able to ask questions between now and the next time we meet as well. The technology plan is really just an approval because I do need to submit that. That's a,
It's a state requirement.
it's a state requirement. And I hope that there was nothing in there, I mean, it's just our plan, I didn't think there was gonna be anything major in regards to that approval. But I'm not submitting it until the end of this week, so if there are any questions as you look over it and you're like, can you clarify this, is this what you meant? Feel free to reach out and I can make any adjustments if needed to.
All right, that sounds good. So I just wanted to make sure the board understood we were doing this in a couple different parts and why we were doing that, so there we go.
Move to approve.
Thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Number 5,
Move to adjourn.
Thank you.
all in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Have a good evening. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. I appreciate it.